Have you ever felt a strange heaviness in your heart when standing beside someone who smiles at you, yet deep inside you sense something is not right? That quiet whisper inside, the one you sometimes ignore, is rarely wrong. We often silence it because we want to believe the best in people. We want to think that those around us have good intentions, that their kindness is real, and that their words carry truth. But what if the person next to you is not who they pretend to be? What if their smile hides darkness, and what you thought was love or friendship is actually a weapon designed to weaken you? This is the painful reality many people discover only after years of confusion, betrayal, and broken trust. And this video exists to wake you up before it is too late. You are not here by accident. Something brought you here. A feeling, a question, a doubt. Deep inside, you know that energy does not lie. Words can deceive, appearances can fool, but energy always reveals the truth. That tightness in your chest, the way your stomach knots when someone enters the room, the sudden drain of your energy after speaking with them, these are not random sensations. They are your soul's alarm system, trying to protect you. Yet how often do we ignore it? How often do we brush it aside, thinking we are being paranoid or ungrateful, when in reality it is the most honest signal we could ever receive? The truth is, not everyone around you wishes you well. Not everyone wants to see you shine, succeed, or grow stronger. Some people, driven by envy, bitterness, or deep emptiness within themselves, cling to you not because they love you, but because they crave what you carry. They want your light because they have lost theirs. They want your energy because they cannot generate their own. And the most dangerous thing about an evil person, especially an evil woman who hides her true face, is that she does not arrive in your life wearing a mask of malice. She arrives clothed in sweetness, in comfort, in promises of understanding. She makes you feel chosen, important, even special. But behind every compliment lies a trap, and behind every soft word lies a hook that pulls you deeper into her control. You may already know someone like this. Perhaps you have doubted your own judgment for far too long. Maybe you have questioned why your confidence feels weaker when she is near, why your dreams feel harder to pursue, why your heart feels heavier after every conversation. This is no coincidence. When someone's presence consistently drains your spirit, it is a sign. And the most empowering thing you can do is to recognize it, to trust your instincts, and to step into the truth no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Because here is the reward waiting for you: clarity. Once you see with clear eyes, you reclaim your power. You stop excusing behavior that chips away at your soul. You stop giving your energy to someone who feeds on your weakness. You stop living in the fog of confusion and start walking in the sharp light of truth. This journey may feel painful at first, but it is the kind of pain that leads to freedom, strength, and transformation. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover are the undeniable signs that reveal the truth. Once you see them, you can never unsee them, and you will never again be trapped in the web of an evil woman. The most dangerous power of an evil person is not what they do to your face, but what they slowly convince you to believe about yourself. They plant seeds of doubt where there should be confidence. They whisper limitations where there should be possibilities. They wrap their poison in subtle remarks disguised as advice, disguised as concern, until you begin to question your own worth. And the moment you start doubting who you are, they win. Because self-doubt is the crack in the armor through which manipulation seeps, and once it settles in your mind, it becomes a silent voice that works against you every single day. You may notice how she always finds a way to diminish your victories. When you achieve something great, she will smile, but the smile will be thin, forced, hiding resentment beneath. She may congratulate you with words, but her tone reveals jealousy. Her energy reveals discomfort. Or worse, she shifts the spotlight back on herself, making your moment feel smaller, as if it never mattered. This is not love. This is not support. This is the quiet destruction of your spirit by someone who cannot stand to see you rise higher than them. And the longer you allow it, the more your inner flame flickers. Think about the times you felt guilty for celebrating yourself. Think about the times you held back from sharing your joy because you feared her reaction, her silence, or her cold withdrawal. That is not normal. That is control. Because when your happiness becomes a threat to someone else, you are standing next to someone who feeds on your dimming light. The real question is not whether you deserve better. You already know you do. The real question is, how much longer will you allow someone to rob you of the energy that was meant to lift your life higher? The moment you start protecting your energy is the moment you begin to transform. You cannot wait for permission. You cannot wait for their approval, because it will never come. You must choose yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels selfish, even when they call you ungrateful. Because the truth is, choosing yourself is never selfish. It is survival. It is the only way you reclaim the strength that was taken from you piece by piece. There is a reason you are still listening right now. A part of you already knows the truth. A part of you has felt the weight of her presence, the sting of her words, the hollowness in her comfort. And deep inside, you are tired of pretending it doesn't matter. You are tired of excusing behavior that leaves you drained. You are tired of silencing your inner voice, the one that screams for freedom every time she walks into the room. That voice is your compass. That voice is your shield. It is your reminder that you were never meant to live small, controlled, or afraid. When you finally step into your truth, you break the chains that were wrapped around your heart. You begin to breathe deeper, walk taller, and trust yourself again. And from that place of clarity, you no longer chase validation from someone who thrives on your weakness. You stand firm, strong, and untouchable. Because the greatest revenge against an evil presence is not anger, not bitterness, but rising so high in your own strength that their power over you dissolves into nothing. Stay open, because as we continue, you will uncover the signs that can no longer be ignored, the very signs that will set you free. The true mark of someone who carries darkness is how they twist reality until you no longer trust your own perception. You begin to second guess what you saw, what you heard, even what you felt. When she hurts you, she denies it. When she lies, she makes you feel guilty for questioning her. When you finally gather the courage to call out her behavior, she flips the story until you are the villain. This is not an accident. It is strategy. Because if she can make you doubt your own mind, she can control you without lifting a finger. Notice how arguments with her never resolve. You walk away more confused than when you started, questioning if you were overreacting, replaying every word, wondering if you imagined the insult. That fog is not weakness on your part. It is evidence of manipulation. She thrives in that fog because the more uncertain you feel, the more power she holds. The longer you remain trapped in her web, the harder it becomes to see what is real and what is illusion. And yet the moment you see this pattern for what it is, the spell begins to break. Evil does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers so quietly you mistake it for care. She will wrap her criticism in the language of love. She will call it helping, teaching, or protecting, when in truth it is only stripping away your confidence one layer at a time. And if you allow it long enough, you stop recognizing yourself. You begin to shrink, to walk softer, to silence your truth just to keep the peace. But peace built on silence is not peace. It is surrender. And surrender to a toxic presence is the slow death of your spirit. This is why awareness is power. Once you see the game, you cannot unsee it. Once you recognize that her care is control, her concern is envy, her guidance is sabotage, you take back the power she tried to steal. You remind yourself that love is not supposed to confuse you. Respect is not supposed to humiliate you. Connection is not supposed to drain you. If it does, then what you are experiencing is not love. It is poison wrapped in pretty words. And this is the moment where courage is required, because breaking free begins with refusing to explain away the truth any longer. It begins with trusting your gut even when your mind feels tangled. It begins with standing tall in the face of her denial, knowing that your clarity is stronger than her confusion. This is not easy. It takes strength to walk away from someone who has built their power on convincing you that you cannot live without them. But here is the truth she does not want you to realize. You are more powerful without her than you ever were beside her. Every step you take toward clarity is a step back into your own strength. Every boundary you set is a declaration that your soul is no longer for sale. Every time you choose truth over manipulation, you rise. And when you rise, you create a life where no one's darkness can dim your light again. The chains she tried to lock around you will fall, and in their place will stand a stronger, braver, freer version of you, the version you were always meant to be. What makes her presence even more destructive is how she isolates you without ever needing to say the word. Slowly, piece by piece, she creates distance between you and the people who truly care. She criticizes your friends, planting subtle doubts about their loyalty. She makes remarks about your family, suggesting they don't understand you the way she does. She wraps these seeds in false concern so they don't feel like attacks at first, but over time you notice that you call people less, visit less, share less. And one day you realize that your circle has grown smaller, not by accident, but by design. Because the more alone you feel, the more dependent you become on her. Isolation is the favorite weapon of control, and she uses it masterfully. Think about how often you have wanted to reach out to someone, but then stopped yourself, replaying her words in your mind. Think about the times you wondered if your friends were secretly against you, even though they had never given you a reason to doubt them. That confusion is not yours, it is hers, planted inside you like poison, because the easiest way to weaken someone is to make them believe they have no one else to lean on. And once you believe that, you cling to the very person who is draining your soul. This is why clarity is so powerful. When you begin to see the pattern, you realize that real love never isolates. True care encourages connection, celebrates your bonds, and strengthens your circle. The people who truly love you want you to be surrounded by more love, not less. They want you to be supported, uplifted, and celebrated by as many hearts as possible. Anything less than that is not love. It is control wrapped in false devotion. And here is the empowering truth. The very connections she tried to cut off from you are still there. Maybe they have been waiting quietly. Maybe the distance feels wide, but real love does not disappear when manipulated. Real love waits, ready for you to return with open eyes. The same strength she tried to bury in you is the strength that can guide you back to those who genuinely care. The moment you recognize her tactics, you stop letting her be the gatekeeper of your relationships, and you step back into the freedom to choose who surrounds you. Isolation only works when you believe the lie that you are alone. But you are not alone. You were never alone. Even if every friend and family member were gone, you would still have yourself. And you are enough. You are the foundation upon which every new connection can be built. You are the source of the love that can attract true people back into your life. And when you begin to see your worth again, you no longer fear isolation because you realize that solitude is not weakness, it is power. It is the soil from which strength grows, the silence where your spirit sharpens, the space where you learn to stand tall on your own. Once you stand strong in that truth, her control begins to crumble. She cannot isolate someone who knows they are never truly alone. She cannot manipulate someone who trusts their own voice. She cannot win against a soul that has remembered its own light. And when you rise in that awareness, you no longer look to her for belonging. You create belonging within yourself, and that is something no one can ever take away. When control begins to slip, she turns to another weapon, guilt. She shapes every interaction in a way that makes you feel responsible for her happiness, her anger, her sadness, even her mistakes. If she is upset, it is somehow your fault. If she fails, you should have done more. If she feels insecure, you must be the reason. And slowly, without even realizing it, you carry the weight of emotions that were never yours to bear. This is how she binds you, not with chains, but with invisible threads of obligation that tighten every time you choose her comfort over your own truth. Think about the times you apologized when you weren't wrong. Think about how often you softened your voice, held back your feelings, or adjusted your behavior just to avoid upsetting her. That is not compromise. That is control disguised as love. Because true love does not demand constant sacrifice of self. True love does not make you walk on eggshells in fear of triggering someone else's storm. When you find yourself shrinking just to keep the peace, you are no longer in a relationship. You are in a cage. Guilt is powerful because it attacks the part of you that is good. It targets your empathy, your kindness, your natural desire to care. She knows you do not want to hurt people, so she twists that compassion into a weapon against you. But here is what she cannot take. The moment you see guilt for what it truly is, you take back your power. You realize that you are not responsible for fixing someone who refuses to heal themselves. You realize that you are not obligated to carry the weight of emotions that were placed on your shoulders by manipulation. You realize that the only true responsibility you have is to protect your own soul. Freedom begins when you stop apologizing for being yourself. It begins when you choose to honor your feelings, your needs, and your boundaries, even when someone tries to make you feel selfish for doing so. Self-respect is not selfishness, it is survival. It is the recognition that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot live a meaningful life while carrying the burden of someone else's unhealed wounds. When you free yourself from false guilt, everything changes. You begin to notice how heavy you had been, how tired your spirit had become from carrying more than it was ever meant to carry. You feel lighter, stronger, clearer, and from that place of strength, you begin to choose differently. You no longer allow yourself to be punished for things that were never your fault. You no longer give endless chances to someone who thrives on your endless forgiveness. You no longer sacrifice your peace to protect someone else's chaos. This is where transformation begins. Because once guilt loses its grip on you, you no longer respond to manipulation. You no longer bend under pressure. You no longer seek approval from someone who feeds on your weakness. Instead, you stand tall, grounded in the truth that your life is yours, your happiness is yours, your freedom is yours. And the moment you embrace that truth fully, her power disappears. What once felt like chains turns into smoke, and you walk forward unbound, unstoppable, unbreakable. Once guilt no longer holds you, she turns to fear, because fear is the last tool of control when everything else begins to fail. Fear keeps you small, quiet, hesitant, and dependent. It whispers to you that leaving her will destroy you, that no one else will accept you, that you are not strong enough to stand alone. It warns you that if you resist, she will make you regret it. And while her threats may not always be spoken out loud, they are felt in the tension of her silence, the sharpness of her glance, the cold withdrawal she uses as punishment. Fear does not need to scream. It only needs to linger in your mind long enough for you to surrender. This is why fear is so powerful. It does not have to be real to feel real. It only has to be believed. She wants you to imagine the worst outcomes, to replay every possible failure, to live inside scenarios where breaking free destroys you. Because as long as you fear freedom more than you fear her, she wins. But the truth is, fear is only a shadow. It looks large. It feels heavy. But the moment you walk toward it with courage, it dissolves into nothing. Fear cannot survive in the presence of action. Fear cannot grow when you move forward anyway. Think about the times you hesitated, knowing what you needed to do, but holding back because of what might happen. That hesitation was not weakness. It was the tug of fear trying to keep you bound. And yet, every person who has ever broken free from a toxic hold shares the same truth. The fear before the step was always bigger than the reality after it. Once the step was taken, freedom tasted sweeter than they ever imagined. The nightmare they had built in their minds was never real. It was only the illusion created by someone who needed them to stay afraid. You are stronger than fear. You have walked through storms before. You have faced pain, loss, betrayal, and still, you are here. You have scars that prove you survived battles you thought would break you. Why would this be any different? Why would this moment right now be the one that ends you, when every moment before has only revealed how unshakable you are? The fear you feel is not a wall, it is a test. It is the final attempt to keep you chained to someone who knows they are losing their grip. And the only way fear wins is if you stop moving. But you will not stop. You will not bow. You will not surrender to the illusion. Because you were not created to live in the shadows of someone else's control. You were created to rise, to step into the fullness of your strength, to breathe the air of freedom and never again be shackled by fear. And the moment you decide that your future matters more than her threats, your courage ignites like fire. That fire cannot be extinguished because it is the truth of who you are. When you choose courage over fear, you transform your entire life. Every step you take forward strengthens your belief in yourself. Every act of bravery builds a new foundation where her voice no longer echoes. And soon, the fear that once paralyzed you becomes a distant memory, replaced by the undeniable proof that you are free, powerful, and unstoppable. When fear no longer binds you, what rises within you is the awareness of boundaries, and this is where your transformation becomes undeniable. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your peace, your energy, and your soul. They are the declaration that your life is your own, that your time is valuable, that your heart is sacred. And for someone who has lived by manipulation, boundaries are the one thing they cannot tolerate, because boundaries are proof that their power over you has ended. The evil woman thrives on crossing lines, testing limits, and stepping into spaces where she does not belong. She believes she is entitled to your time, entitled to your forgiveness, entitled to your attention, entitled to every part of you. She does not see your generosity as kindness. She sees it as her right. But the moment you draw a line and refuse to let her cross it, the illusion shatters. Because boundaries expose the truth, she was never in control. She only borrowed the control you refused to claim for yourself. Boundaries are not walls that keep love out. They are gates that decide what love can enter. And when you finally build them, you discover that what once felt impossible becomes natural. Saying no longer feels like rebellion. It feels like protection. Refusing to accept disrespect no longer feels harsh. It feels like strength. Guarding your energy no longer feels selfish. It feels like clarity. This is the shift she never wanted you to experience, because boundaries mean she can no longer feed on you. It is not enough to hope someone will respect you. Respect begins with you. If you do not value your own worth, she never will. If you do not protect your space, she will always invade it. If you do not stand firm in your truth, she will always rewrite it. This is why setting boundaries is not only about keeping others in check, it is about reminding yourself of who you are. Every boundary is a declaration that you matter. Every boundary is an act of love for yourself. Every boundary is proof that you are awake, aware, and unwilling to be diminished any longer. There will be resistance. She will push harder when she feels the wall rise between you. She will accuse you of changing, of being cold, of being ungrateful. But this is not a reflection of you. It is the panic of someone losing control. The louder she protests, the clearer the truth becomes. And the clearer the truth becomes, the stronger you grow. Each test of your boundary is an opportunity to stand firm, to prove to yourself that you are unshakable. And with each stand, the power dynamic shifts until you realize she no longer commands your energy, your time, or your spirit. This is liberation. Boundaries are not just about keeping someone else out. They are about letting your true self in, the self that no longer bends under pressure, the self that no longer tolerates disrespect, the self that no longer trades peace for acceptance. This self has been waiting inside you all along, waiting for the moment when you would rise and declare that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you are free. When you live with boundaries, you no longer fear who stands beside you, because you know your soul is protected. You no longer question your worth because your life reflects it. You no longer search for validation because you give it to yourself. And in that freedom, no evil presence can ever hold power over you again. The moment you begin to live with boundaries, you also begin to rediscover your voice. For too long, her influence may have silenced you, trained you to hold back, conditioned you to question every word before it left your mouth. She wanted you uncertain, hesitant, cautious, because a quiet soul is easier to control, but your voice was never meant to be muted. Your voice is the channel of your truth, the instrument of your freedom, the weapon against every lie spoken over your life. And once you reclaim it, you become unstoppable. Notice how silence has been used against you. Every time you swallowed your feelings to keep the peace, she gained strength. Every time you bit your tongue instead of speaking your truth, you lost a piece of yourself. This is why she worked so hard to make you doubt your voice, because deep down, she knew that if you ever dared to use it with conviction, her control would collapse. The power she held was never real power. It was borrowed power given to her through your silence. And the moment you take it back, the balance shifts forever. Your voice does not have to be loud to be powerful. It only has to be honest. A whisper of truth is stronger than a scream of manipulation. The moment you begin to speak from clarity instead of fear, you cut through the fog she created. You begin to dismantle every false story, every twisted narrative, every manipulation that kept you bound. And with each word of truth, You remind yourself who you are. You remind yourself that your perspective matters, that your feelings matter, that your life matters. Reclaiming your voice is not just about confronting her. It is about speaking life into yourself. It is about declaring that you are worthy, declaring that you are strong, declaring that you will no longer shrink to make someone else comfortable. It is about looking in the mirror and saying out loud the words you once needed to hear but never received. Words like, I am enough, I deserve peace, I will not be broken. These words are not just affirmations, they are shields, reminders that your spirit cannot be silenced by anyone's darkness. And yes, there will be resistance. She will mock your voice, try to dismiss it, try to twist your truth back into a lie. But each attempt only reveals how much she fears your awakening. Because once your voice rises, she can no longer write your story. Once your voice rises, she can no longer erase your worth. Once your voice rises, she can no longer convince you that silence is safer than freedom. Your voice is your weapon, and once you use it, you will never again be disarmed. Every word you speak from truth is a crack in the chains that held you. Every declaration of self-worth is a stone added to the foundation of your freedom. Every sentence spoken with courage is a torch lit in the darkness. And soon, the silence that once trapped you becomes impossible, because you know that living without your voice is not living at all. When you claim your voice fully, you reclaim your life. You rise from the shadows of manipulation into the light of your own truth. And in that light, no one, not even the most cunning presence, can silence you again. When your voice returns, something even greater awakens within you, self-trust. This is the foundation that was attacked from the very beginning, because if she could make you doubt yourself, she could make you depend on her. She wanted you to second-guess every decision, to question every instinct, to hesitate until she became the one you looked to for direction. That is why every manipulation, every subtle lie, every twist of the truth was aimed at one target: your confidence in your own judgment. But now you're beginning to see clearly, and with clarity comes the rebirth of trust in yourself. Self-trust is freedom, because it means you no longer need permission to live your truth. You no longer wait for approval before making choices. You no longer seek validation before following your instincts. You know within yourself what feels right and what does not, and that knowing becomes your compass. For too long, you ignored that inner compass, dismissing it as paranoia, calling it overthinking, silencing it to keep her happy. But the voice inside you was never wrong. It was warning you, guiding you, urging you to see what your heart already knew. And now, by trusting it again, you step into alignment with your own power. Think about the times you felt the subtle alarm inside, but brushed it away because she convinced you otherwise. Those moments were not weakness. They were evidence that your intuition was alive, even under pressure. And now, every time you honor that inner signal, you strengthen it. You build a bond with yourself that cannot be broken, no matter how many lies surround you. Because when you trust yourself, no manipulation can take root. When you trust yourself, no mask can fool you. When you trust yourself, you walk with a certainty that cannot be shaken by anyone's words or actions. This is why rebuilding self-trust is one of the most powerful acts of healing. It teaches you that you already carry within you the answers you need. It shows you that your wisdom is not something you must search for outside. It is something you reclaim from within. And once you operate from that inner certainty, you no longer live reactive to the schemes of others. You live proactive, guided by your own truth, aligned with your own values, fueled by your own vision. She will sense this change, because nothing terrifies a manipulator more than someone who trusts themselves. Her words will lose their weight. Her tactics will lose their effect. Her games will fall flat because you no longer question your reality. You know it. And in that knowing, she cannot shake you. She cannot bend you. She cannot own you. The grip she once had becomes dust in your hands, and you stand taller, firmer, unmovable. With self-trust, you begin to create a new story for your life. A story where your decisions are honored, your feelings are valid, your path is chosen by you. You no longer live in the shadows of doubt. You walk in the light of conviction. Every step affirms that you are capable. Every choice reminds you that you are wise. Every moment strengthens the truth that you are enough. And in that strength, something profound happens. You no longer fear losing anyone because you realize you have already found the one person you can never live without: yourself. When self-trust returns, a deeper transformation begins to unfold, the awakening of self-worth. For too long, her presence may have convinced you that you were not enough, that your value depended on her approval, that your place in the world was measured by how well you served her needs. This was the lie that kept you bound, because if you believed you were unworthy, you would accept treatment that dishonored you. You would tolerate disrespect, justify betrayal, and settle for pain disguised as love. But now, as your confidence rebuilds, you begin to remember the truth. Your worth was never hers to define, and it was never lost. It has always been within you, waiting to be reclaimed. Self-worth is not about arrogance, and it is not about comparing yourself to anyone else. It is about recognizing the simple, undeniable truth that you deserve respect, peace, and love that does not wound you. It is about knowing that your existence is valuable, not because of what you give to others, but because of who you are. And the moment you realize this, you stop begging for scraps of validation from someone who only wanted to see you starve. You rise from the table of manipulation and take your place in a life where love is abundant and unconditional. Think about how much you have endured while questioning your own value. Every insult you excused, every moment of neglect you tolerated, every compromise you made just to hold on to a connection that was draining you. None of that was because you were weak. It was because you had forgotten your worth. And forgetting does not mean losing. It only means you were temporarily blinded. But now, your eyes are open, and with that clarity comes a power so profound that no one can strip it from you again. When you embrace self-worth, everything changes. The way you carry yourself changes. The way you speak changes. The way you allow others to treat you changes. You no longer tolerate what once broke you, because you know you are more than enough. You no longer chase people who diminish you, because you know true connection is built on equality, not control. You no longer bend yourself into shapes that do not fit, because you know your authenticity is your greatest strength. She will notice this shift, and it will unsettle her. Because the moment you know your worth, her influence collapses. Her criticisms no longer pierce you. Her silence no longer punishes you. Her approval no longer defines you. You stand firm, rooted in the unshakable truth that you are valuable, with or without her presence. And that realization is the end of her power, because no manipulation can survive in the heart of someone who knows they deserve better. The beauty of self-worth is that it does not only protect you, it transforms your entire life. It attracts healthier connections. It opens doors to opportunities you once thought you weren't good enough for. It fills your spirit with a confidence that radiates to everyone around you. When you finally see yourself clearly, others see you differently too. They feel your strength, your certainty, your presence, and those who cannot honor it naturally fall away, leaving room for those who can. This is the reward waiting for you. A life where your value is no longer questioned. A life where your relationships are built on mutual respect. A life where you no longer shrink to fit someone else's mold, but expand fully into who you were always meant to be. Because the truth is, you were never broken, never lacking, never unworthy. You were only convinced to forget. And now, with your worth remembered, you are untouchable. When self-worth rises, something extraordinary happens. You begin to demand alignment between your inner truth and your outer world. No longer will you accept situations, relationships, or environments that dishonor the light inside you. The gap between who you are and what you allow begins to close, and in that closing, you step into integrity with yourself. This is the moment where freedom becomes permanent, because you are no longer living divided. You are no longer pretending to be smaller than you are. You are no longer playing roles written by someone else. You are living as you, fully, unapologetically, powerfully. Integrity with yourself is not about perfection. It is about honesty. It is about refusing to betray your soul for temporary peace. It is about saying no when everything inside you knows no is the answer, even if others want you to say yes. It is about walking away from the familiar when the familiar has become toxic. And it's about standing tall in the discomfort of truth rather than shrinking into the false safety of lies. This is what terrifies those who seek to control you, because once you choose alignment over approval, their influence is erased. Think about how many times you compromise your truth just to avoid conflict, just to keep her satisfied, just to maintain a connection that was already suffocating you. Each time you silenced your truth, you chipped away at your own integrity. But integrity is not something you lose forever. It is something you reclaim the moment you decide to live by it again. Every time you honor your feelings, your needs, your values, you rebuild it. And each act of alignment strengthens your spirit until you no longer bend, no longer break, no longer betray yourself to keep someone else comfortable. This shift changes everything. It changes the way you speak, because your words no longer serve as shields, they serve as truth. It changes the way you walk, because your steps are no longer hesitant, they are confident. It changes the way you live, because your choices no longer reflect fear, they reflect freedom. And when you live this way, you cannot be controlled, because control only works on those willing to betray themselves. Once you decide you will never again abandon yourself, no manipulation can hold you. She will sense this integrity, and it will unravel her tactics. Her attempts to twist your reality will fail, because your truth is too solid. Her attempts to guilt you will collapse, because you know what belongs to you and what does not. Her attempts to instill fear will dissolve, because you are standing on the unshakable ground of your own authenticity. You are no longer playing her game because her game requires you to be dishonest with yourself, and that chapter of your life is closed forever. The beauty of living in alignment is that it draws everything good toward you. The right people feel your authenticity and are drawn to it. The right opportunities recognize your confidence and open to it. The right paths reveal themselves because you are finally walking in clarity, not confusion. Life begins to feel lighter, freer, brighter, because you are no longer carrying the weight of falsehood. You are only carrying the truth of who you are, and that truth is enough. When you live this way, you become untouchable, not because there is no darkness in the world, but because no darkness can penetrate a soul that refuses to dim its own light. And once you have tasted this integrity, you will never again accept anything less. When you begin to live in integrity, something even greater unfolds, the rebirth of your inner strength. This strength is not the loud, aggressive kind that needs to prove itself. It is the quiet, steady force that comes from knowing who you are and refusing to compromise that truth. It is the strength that cannot be shaken by criticism, cannot be stolen by lies, cannot be bent by manipulation. It is the kind of strength that shines through your presence before you even speak a word. And it is the very strength she tried to destroy from the beginning, because she knew it would make you untouchable. Inner strength is not built overnight. It is forged in fire. It is the result of every time you chose to rise after being pushed down, every time you kept going when you wanted to give up, every time you stood tall even while trembling inside. The battles you endured did not weaken you, they shaped you. They carved resilience into your bones, clarity into your mind, and courage into your spirit. And now, as you reclaim your worth and your voice, you see that the strength you thought you lost was never gone. It was waiting for this moment to return with greater power than ever before. This strength changes how you see everything. You no longer fear the storm because you know you are the one who carries the anchor. You no longer beg for love because you know you are love. You no longer bend under pressure because you know your roots are deeper than any wind that blows against you. Strength is not about avoiding pain, it is about refusing to be broken by it. And the moment you step into that realization, you become the kind of person who rises above every attempt to pull you down. She will feel this strength, and it will unsettle her. Because strength is the one thing she cannot control. She can only control weakness, and when weakness turns into power, her influence disappears. She will test you, push against you, try to find cracks in your armor. But the difference now is that your strength is not an act. It is who you are. It is not borrowed from anyone else. It is yours. It does not need her validation. It stands on its own. The beauty of inner strength is that it is not only protection, it is creation. From this place, you begin to build a life that reflects your true self. You start making choices not from fear, but from vision. You start surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, not drain you. You start walking with a confidence that attracts opportunities aligned with your destiny. And the more you live this way, the more unshakable you become. Strength is magnetic. It inspires others to rise. It creates ripples that reach further than you can see. And every time you stand tall in your truth, you give silent permission for others to do the same. This is why your transformation is not just about you. It is about everyone whose life will be touched by your courage. When your strength shines, her shadow fades. When your strength speaks, her lies crumble. When your strength rises, her control ends. And in that moment, you realize the greatest victory is not revenge, not anger, not bitterness, but becoming so strong, so free, and so alive that no darkness can ever hold you again. With strength alive within you, the next shift is clarity. Clarity is the light that cuts through the fog of confusion, the torch that reveals what was hidden in the shadows, the vision that guides you forward when everything else tries to pull you back. For so long, her influence thrived on your lack of clarity. She fed off your doubts, your second-guessing, your hesitation. She knew that if you questioned your own perception, you would lean on hers, giving her the power to shape your reality. But when clarity rises, the fog lifts, and suddenly the truth stands undeniable before your eyes. Clarity is not just about seeing her actions for what they are. It is about seeing yourself clearly, who you are, what you deserve, what you will no longer allow. It is about knowing your boundaries and refusing to let anyone cross them. It is about looking at the story of your life and realizing where you were deceived, where you were controlled, and where you gave away your power, and then choosing to rewrite that story from this moment forward. Clarity removes the illusions, and when the illusions are gone, freedom becomes unstoppable. When you live with clarity, you stop excusing toxic behavior. You stop pretending manipulation is love. You stop rationalizing disrespect as normal. You stop convincing yourself to stay where your soul is screaming to leave. Clarity is a form of courage, because to see the truth is to accept responsibility for what must change. And though the truth can hurt, it is also the very thing that heals. Because clarity gives you the wisdom to see the trap, and once you see it, you are no longer trapped. She will sense this clarity, and it will terrify her. Because her power only works in the dark. Lies only work when you can't tell they are lies. Manipulation only works when you don't recognize the strings. But when your vision sharpens, every tactic becomes obvious, every trick becomes predictable, every mask becomes transparent. And the more you see, the less you fear. The less you fear, the stronger you grow, and the stronger you grow, the faster her power dissolves. Clarity is also the key to peace. It ends the chaos of confusion, the war of self-doubt, the endless questions that torment the mind. With clarity, you no longer waste energy on trying to decode hidden meanings or wondering if you're the problem. You know who you are. You know what's happening. You know where you stand. That knowing becomes your anchor. That knowing becomes your strength. That knowing becomes your freedom. And with clarity, your path forward begins to open. You start to see not only what you must walk away from, but what you must walk toward. You begin to recognize the relationships that nourish you, the environments that support you, the opportunities that align with your truth. Life begins to feel less like a maze and more like a journey. Every step you take is guided by vision, not confusion. Every choice is guided by awareness, not blindness. Every action is guided by wisdom, not fear. Clarity frees you from her grip and prepares you for something greater. Because once you see clearly, you can no longer be deceived, you can no longer be controlled, and you can no longer be held back by shadows. You become unstoppable, not because the world has changed, but because you have awakened to see it as it truly is. Clarity leads naturally into strength, and strength is not always loud. Strength is not just about standing tall in public or showing no fear when challenged. True strength is the quiet decision you make in your heart that no one will ever control your soul again. It is the steady resolve that you will not return to chains once you have tasted freedom. It is the invisible armor that grows inside you each time you say no to manipulation, each time you resist the pressure to doubt yourself, each time you protect your own peace instead of sacrificing it to please someone else. This kind of strength is built one choice at a time. It begins when you decide to believe yourself again, when you trust your own mind more than the opinions of those who try to twist it. It grows when you face discomfort instead of running from it, when you hold your ground instead of folding under guilt or fear. It expands when you let go of the approval of someone who never truly valued you, and when you realize you don't need their permission to live your truth. Every small act of strength compounds, building a foundation that no storm can destroy. She thrived on your weakness because weakness meant access. Weakness meant she could bend your will, invade your peace, and write her story over yours. But the moment strength awakens in you, that access is denied. Your boundaries become walls that cannot be crossed. Your voice becomes steady where it once trembled. Your spirit becomes firm where it once bent. She may still attempt to control, but she will meet resistance, and resistance is the beginning of her end. Strength also means endurance. It means you can face the pain of letting go and not break under it. It means you can withstand the loneliness that sometimes comes after leaving toxicity behind, trusting that better connections will come. It means you can carry yourself through the nights of doubt and emerge with your convictions stronger than before. Endurance makes you unshakable because nothing she does can outlast your determination. Every attempt to weaken you only becomes proof of your resilience. But strength is not just defense, it is creation. Once you reclaim your power, you begin to build. You create a life where respect is the standard, where love is pure, where peace is non-negotiable. You construct relationships on trust, not fear. You make choices from self-worth, not self-doubt. You align your actions with your vision, not her manipulation. Strength turns survival into transformation, and transformation into destiny. There will still be voices, sometimes hers, sometimes echoes in your own mind, whispering that you cannot stand alone, that you cannot succeed without her approval, that you are not enough on your own. But strength answers those voices with silence because it no longer needs to prove anything. Strength simply lives, breathes, and walks forward without apology. And as you walk, you notice the weight lifting from your shoulders, the fog clearing from your mind, the fear fading from your heart. Your strength is your shield, your sword, your freedom. It protects your soul from harm. It cuts through the lies that once bound you. It opens the gates to a life where you no longer merely survive, you thrive. And once strength takes root, it cannot be stolen. It becomes a permanent part of you, a force that no darkness can extinguish. This is the strength that not only frees you from her control, but also empowers you to rise into the life you were always meant to live. Strength without vision can protect you, but it cannot guide you. When you finally reclaim your power, the next step is to decide where that power will take you. This is where your life begins, to expand beyond the shadow of survival. This is where freedom becomes more than escape. It becomes creation. You are no longer defined by what you endured. You are defined by what you choose now, by the direction you set for your heart, by the future you dare to design. Vision is the light that takes your strength and channels it into purpose. For too long, your focus may have been on her actions, her moods, her manipulations. You were trained to anticipate, to adjust, to manage the chaos she created. But now your energy must turn inward, not outward. The question is no longer what she will do next. The question is what you will do next. What life will you build with the time, energy, and freedom that belongs to you? This shift of focus is not easy because the mind can be conditioned to live in reaction instead of creation. Yet the moment you dare to dream again, you disrupt the pattern she imposed. You reclaim the right to imagine, to plan, to live deliberately. Vision requires clarity, and clarity requires honesty. What do you truly want, not what someone else told you to want? What values matter to you, not what was forced upon you? What dreams have been buried under years of manipulation, waiting for the chance to breathe again? When you sit with these questions, you begin to uncover the blueprint of your authentic life. That blueprint is your compass. It keeps you moving forward when doubt whispers, when fear rises, when the shadows of the past try to pull you back. Vision also demands courage, because when you see clearly, you realize the gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap can feel overwhelming, but courage bridges it one step at a time. Courage tells you that every small move toward your dream matters. Courage reminds you that no matter how far you once strayed from yourself, you can always return. Courage fuels consistency, and consistency creates transformation. There will be moments when your vision feels fragile, when the weight of old wounds threatens to cloud it. That is natural. Healing is not a straight path. But each time you return to your vision, you strengthen it. Each time you speak it out loud, you affirm it. Each time you act in alignment with it, you make it more real. Slowly, the vision stops being a distant hope and becomes a lived reality. And when that happens, you no longer look back to measure how far you have come. You look ahead, driven by the possibilities still waiting. A powerful vision also reshapes your relationships. You no longer allow anyone into your life who does not align with the values you hold sacred. You no longer entertain people who thrive on fear, chaos, or control. Instead, you attract those who support your growth, respect your boundaries, and celebrate your victories. Your vision becomes a filter, ensuring that only what is meant for your highest good remains in your life. Strength guarded your soul. Vision directs it. Together, they form an unstoppable force that no manipulation, no darkness, no toxic presence can ever overcome again. And as your vision sharpens, you realize that what once broke you has now prepared you to build something far greater than you ever imagined.